Good morning, and welcome to the September meeting of the Long Island Committee. Are there any public comments? Okay. Okay.
Good morning. I'm Bill Henderson. I'm the Executive Director of Long Island Railroad Commuters Council. The Council, I want to speak on the capital program this morning. The Council has reviewed the capital program, and by and large, we're pleased to see the Railroad's commitment to maintaining core infrastructure and investments such as the mainline second track between Farmingdale and Ronkonkoma. We've also had productive discussions with MTA staff on the capital program and found them responsive to concerns we've expressed. In particular, we've been pleased with movement towards developing a detailed parking and station access program to respond to the demands that will accompany the site access opening. Still, we have several concerns with the capital program that we'd like to share with this committee. We believe that the omission of the Mainline Corridor Improvements Project is a serious shortcoming. The funding may not be available to proceed to the construction phase of this project in the next 5 years, but we believe that money should be included for design and planning of the project in order to keep it moving forward, particularly in view of many issues that will need to be resolved prior to its completion. Council supports the LIR's intention to pursue several projects in this corridor to immediately address state of good repair issues. We'd like to recommend, however, that the LIR enter into discussions with FTA to determine these projects' impact on federal funding and how these near-term projects can be coordinated with moving forward with the EIS process for the Mainline Corridor Improvements Project. The Council is also deeply concerned with the quality of the LIR diesel fleet. In the agenda book today, there's a report stating that efforts to improve diesel fleet performance have met with some success, but the diesel fleet continues to frustrate riders who depend upon it. While the report doesn't break out the classes of diesel fleet equipment, the performance of the diesel, electric, and dual mode locomotives remains woeful, and they remain unable to even meet a mean distance between failures goal that has been dropped from 30,000 to 18,000 miles. The proposed capital program includes funding to develop a diesel vulnerable unit car, but that's going to be used for scoot service, for shuttle service, and we're not convinced that that will be enough to raise reliability in diesel territory, which is Long Island's growth area, to a level that would be seen as acceptable. We appreciate the opportunity to present our views, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Murray Bowden, and I represent concerned grandparents. Our grandchildren are the future, and these are the people you're designing for. I came this morning, and I got your agenda book, and I had to go through it to find what I was going to talk about. But if this was produced yesterday, it could have been online last night, and I could have gone through it, and I didn't have to pick up a paper copy, which costs money. Ben Franklin said some time ago that if you watch the pennies, the rest falls in. I'm going to talk about the service contract for bus things. This is a financial statement. A lot of numbers on a page, hard to read. Pages 27 to 45, that's 18 pages, are this big. Information that's rather useless and could be put 2 or 3 or even 4 to a page. Now, if you can't figure out how to save my money and my grandchildren's money by saving paper and putting it online at least the night before, how can I trust that you're going to do the other things right? I'm going to talk about the service contract with Scioto Truck Sales and County Mercury. Every car I have has synthetic oil in the crankshaft, in the engine. Synthetic oil extends the life of the engine more than double. It cuts the changes of oil by at least a third. Using synthetic oil in the transmissions, if you order them that way, doubles the life of every single transmission, bus and car. So if you're going to plan for the future, why aren't we requiring every car and bus that we buy have synthetic transmission fluid in it and synthetic engine oil, and cut this maintenance contract that you're going to approve today in half? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Approval of the minutes of the July 22nd meeting. Second, any comments, concerns? All in favor? Aye. Okay. MTA Long Island Bus. Joseph.
Good morning. There were no changes to the work plan this month. Operations performance report. Overall, July bus service performance was strong. AM and PM weekday pullouts and completed trips were all above 99% for both the month of June and July and for the previous 12 months. The MDBF was 2474 in July, which is up 38% from July of 2008. The 12-month average is 5.9% higher than it was a year ago. All 100 new buses have been received and are now in service. This is in combination with full implementation of the SPIA maintenance management system. It has really contributed to an improvement in our NDBF, and it's being rolled out. The SPIA program is being rolled out in all 3 bus agencies. What it allows you to do is basically look at the history of the bus and determine what the defect was and who performed what maintenance on it prior to that. Regarding bus procurements, I have good news regarding the status of the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act stimulus funds for Long Island Bus. Last month, a grant from approximately $8.8 million was executed. The funds will be used to procure 18 replacement 40-foot CNG buses and associated parts. In regard to safety performance, we had mixed results. The 12-month rate for bus collisions per million miles traveled worsened by 9.4% from last year. The 12-month rate for employee on-duty lost time accidents improved by 45% from the 2008 level. Bus ridership is trending downward for the previous 12 months through July in comparison to the previous year. Total fixed route ridership decreased by 6.4% for July and was down 3.8% for the previous 12 months. Average weekday ridership was down 7.7% for July and down 3.4% for the 12-month period. Weekend ridership was also down 1.4% for the month of July and down 4.7% for a 12-month period. However, paratransit ridership continues to increase. In comparison to 2008, ridership increased by 4.5% for the month of July and 7.1% for the 12-month period. Regarding paratransit, I would also like to note that our Able Ride paratransit service has begun using Crown Vic sedans, using a car instead of a bus to transport customers who do not need wheelchair lifts has the potential to save millions of dollars in vehicle costs, fuel and maintenance, and cars are also, they have the ability to be driven on parkways, so they can get you to your destination faster. In our finance report, fixed route fare box revenue was lower than mid-year forecast by 4.4% for July, and year-to-date it's 1% below the mid-year forecast. Paratransit fare box revenue was better than the mid-year forecast by 12.7% for the month of July, and it's 3.5% above forecast for year-to-date. Actual non-reimbursable expenses before non-cash adjustments were lower than forecast by $1.5 million, or 2.1%, and this is mainly due to the continuing savings that we're seeing with our low fuel prices. Fuel continues, the CNG prices continue to be lower than our estimates were. We have no action items or ratifications this month, but we do have 3 non-competitive and 4 competitive procurements totaling $1.458 million for the committee's approval. The first 2 non-competitive items are 1-year purchase contracts for New York State Preferred Sources, its Industries for the Blind, for the purchase of disposable wipes. The total amount of the 2 contracts is not to exceed $98,276,000. The third competitive item is a change order to existing services with Fleet Wash for paratransit bus wash services. The contract will be extended through the end of this year with additional funding in the amount of $20,000. I request the committee's approval for these three notable.
Second, any questions, comments on those items? All in favor? Aye. Okay.
The first competitive item is a change order to existing contract for service contract with Simplex for fire alarm maintenance services. The contract would be extended 1 year and is expanded to add coverage for Rockville Center and paratransit facilities. The change order is not to exceed $35,000.
Move it.
Second, any questions on Simplex? All in favor? Aye. Okay.
Okay, the next is the award of two competitively bid miscellaneous service contracts, one to Syosset Truck Sales and one to County Lincoln Mercury West for preventive maintenance inspections and small repairs to paratransit bus fleets. The term of each contract is 1 year, and it's not to exceed $359,500.
Move them.
Second, any questions or comments? All in favor? Aye. Okay.
And we do use, by the way, synthetic transmission fluid in all our buses and all our cars. The last is a competitive item is a request for a budget adjustment to an estimated quantity contract with Atlantic Detroit Diesel Allison. It will allow us to increase the purchase of lower price remanufactured parts in place of new parts. The budget adjustment is for $586,000.
Definitely move that.
Second, any comments? All in favor? Aye. Okay.
Okay, we also have two service adjustments to report as information items. I'd like to ask Norm Silverman to step up for a minute.
Hi, can you all hear me?
Norman.
Good morning, all. We have two very minor changes at LIB. One is in Mineola, where we're streamlining the path that two bus routes, the N22 and the N23, use to access the Mineola Intermodal Center. This will replicate a recent change we made, a parallel change, identical change on the N24, which has been successful. It streamlines the route a little bit, avoids two intersections, avoids a few traffic lights, and gets the bus into the Intermodal Center about a minute to two faster. Very minor change. It will not affect any bus stops.
And that minute or two saves us how much a year?
It's a small amount, Joe, about $15,000 a year.
Right.
Okay.
The second change is continuing our effort to unify and provide consistent service on the N49 on Sundays. We're going to have the same layover location in Hicksville that it does on Saturdays. Right now it has a different one. It serves the same general area, but it goes into a shopping center. We're going to go by that shopping center and use the same turnaround loop that we do on Saturdays. And again, part of our effort to provide uniform, consistent service, which we've been trying to do bit by bit as the regional management team has been involved with Long Island Bus.
So that people don't have to figure out what day it is as to where the bus is going to be. The bus will be in the same spot every day.
And the stops will be used, and the stops that are there will be used the same. That's exactly correct.
Okay.
Makes sense, right?
Makes sense, yes. Good.
Okay.
All right.
And I'm also, and there's no change to that operating cost on that move.
No, there's no change in operating costs. It's the same running time and essentially the same distance.
I'm also pleased to tell you that part of our ongoing merger of the bus operations, a universal late-night stop has been implemented on the Hillside Avenue at 180th Street for the safety and convenience of our customers from 11 p.m. to 5 a.m., 7 days a week. All outbound trips on 8 different Long Island bus and MTA bus routes will use a shared bus stop adjacent to the subway station entrance for the F line at 179th Street. Customers will wait in one area for outgoing buses instead of everybody walking several blocks to get to their stops.
Excellent. Good.
This concludes my remarks, and I'll take any questions that anybody has.
Any questions for Joe?
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Okay. Long Island Railroad. Alina.
Good morning, Commissioners. We have a work plan item contained under the information section. That'll be our capital program overview. So I'm going to go directly to the financial report by Mark Young.
Good morning. The financial report begins on page 33 of the book. As you know, we have two months worth of data in there because we had the summer meeting did not occur. Those are the June and July ridership data, but I'll speak to August since we have more preliminary data and more up-to-date data for you. During August, total ridership was down 5.3% versus August of 2008. However, the good news, if there's good news there, it's right on target in terms of what we had forecasted. As you recall, in the July plan, we had dropped down our forecast to reflect the changing economy. So in that sense, at least it matched what we had predicted. During the month, commutation was down 3.9%. However, this is actually the lowest drop in a month we've seen since the beginning of the year, so perhaps we're starting to see some changes in the demographics on ridership, but we still need to see. Non-commutation was down 6.9% for the month of August. That was attributable probably to a little bit of pre-purchasing of 10-trip tickets prior to the fare change. And also on the leisure travel side, though average temperatures were higher and rain was about the same as in 2008, the bad weather occurred largely on weekends. So our beach packages were down 6.8% compared to 2008. So what does that mean overall? Year-to-date ridership is down 4.9% compared to 2008. Commutation is down 5.7%, largely driven by the economy, as I've reported before. There are 1.7% less jobs in the region this year compared to the same point last year. The last point I'll make on ridership is we did introduce the new football tickets and the new football service. That's the Regional Interoperability Project. We're pleased to report that through the preseason and the first regular season game, which was this weekend, there were 1,000 tickets purchased for that trip, Long Island Railroad tickets, of which 340 were just the first regular season game. So clearly the ridership was picking up as we worked through the preseason, and I think we at the Railroad Marketing Department see that as a real growth opportunity for us. I know we're in a rush today because we have a big agenda, so Jerry Ring's given me permission to do the budget report today. So I'll quickly move on to the budget report, which is on page 5 of the book. Again, we have 2 months of reporting in the book due to the summer session, but I'll speak to the July year-to-date data. Total revenue through the end of July was $412 million, which is almost 1% favorable to our mid-year forecast. The largest piece is ridership. We were year-to-date 1.5% unfavorable, which is still below forecast, obviously, but much better than it had been early in the year before we had adjusted our budget. So revenue looks solid versus forecast. On expense, on the labor side, we're virtually right on the forecast. We're at 0.2% within the budget on labor expenses. On non-labor, we are $19.2 million favorable to the mid-year forecast. Those are our 2 major categories. Maintenance contracts, which is a favorable of $6.4 million, which is mostly related to the timing of the IESS security project and some billings related to IT contracts and utilities. And the second piece there is a $7.4 million favorable variance on materials, which relates to the amount of inventory that has been used during the year. And much of that is related to revised life cycle maintenance schedules for the fleet, and also some performance on the fleet that actually has been better than we had anticipated. One example is the wheels on the M7 fleet, which are actually lasting longer than we had originally anticipated. We're in the process of preparing our November plan, the early stages. Obviously, we look at our 09 actuals again during that process, and as issues may arise, budget issues we'll address in the November plan. that concludes my report.
Thank you.
With that, we're going to move right to operations. Ray Kenny.
Good morning. We're going to cover 2 months of activity, July and August. I'll start with July, and the operating report starts on page 40 of the Long Island Railroad section of our book. And the overall on-time performance for July 2009 was 94.57%. The AM peak finished at 96.1. The PM peak at 94.07, and the off-peak was at 94.32. Year-to-date, as of the end of July, was 95.55, which is a new record. The AM peak was 95.97, which is tied for a record. The PM peak was 93.72, and the off-peak was 95.82, which is also a new record. We had 7 100% rush hours in July, 2 in the morning, 5 for the PM rush hour. And year-to-date, we have 48 100% rush hours, which at that point is tied. There's a three-way tie, 1993 and 2008 and 2009. AM peak car availability was met each day of the month. And MBDF, this is for June, that goes back a month. The M7 MBDF exceeded the increased goal of 300,000 miles. The MBDF goal was also exceeded for the M3, C3, and the total fleet. The biggest major event we had was a debris strike west of East New York on July 7th that resulted in 93 late trains, causing trains to lose their third rail shoes right at the beginning of the PM rush hour. Unless there's any questions on July, I'm going to move to August.
Go ahead.
Okay. August starts on page number 58. And the overall on-time performance for August was 95.7%, and that's a record for August. The AM peak was at 97.73%, which is also a new record for August. The PM peak was 94.05. The off-peak was 95.68. Getting to the year-to-date, at that point, August 31st, 95.58, a new record. The AM peak was 96.19, which is also a new record. The PM peak was 93.76, and the off-peak was 95.8, which is also a new record. During August, we had 8 100% rush hours, 6 in the morning and 2 in the PM. Year-to-date, there's a total of 56, which is makes us second. AMP car availability was met each day, and the MBDF for July, this would be the M7 again ran above the increased goal of 300,000 miles, and the MBDF goal was exceeded for the C3 fleet and also for the total fleet. Biggest major events we had were on Monday the 17th and Monday the 24th. We had switch trouble at Harold right during the PM rush hour. The first time it was 40 delays. The second time it was 37. We worked closely with the MTA Police Department on planning of the U.S. Tennis Open and in handling the New York Mets. And, of course, we'll talk about the U.S. Tennis Open next month. And that completes my report for August, and I'm ready for any questions you may have.
Ray, on the events causing Tenmore, you mentioned 2 of them. 4 of them on the list are at Harold Interlocking.
Yes.
Coincidence?
Well,
circumstances?
In the first case, 2 of them are related.
Okay.
Others would be a coincidence, but the first 2 were related. The problem was a wire underground, which presented a bit of a challenge for the people troubleshooting it.
Okay.
So that presented itself twice.
Fixed now?
Fixed now.
Okay.
The others are unrelated.
Okay. Comments, questions from the members? Okay.
Okay, thank you, Ray.
Go ahead, Aaron.
I know. We'll talk about the diesel fleet and the diesel fleet report, and we'll conclude the performance of that.
Good.
I assume at the end.
Okay. We're going to turn now to Kathleen Finneran, Chief Finneran, on the police report.
Good morning. The crime report is located on page 77 in the Long Island book. And for the month of August, I'm happy to report that we have a decrease of 32% for our reportable felonies. As Ray mentioned, the MTA police work closely with operations in planning over the summer month for the Mets games. We had details in place for each of the home games, for the planning for the U.S. Tennis Open, and also each week we had a detail in place for coverage of the Bordy Barn out of Hampton Bays. So I'm happy to say that the summer's over. Yeah. If there are any questions, I'll be
Might
happy
be the
to
only
answer
people
them.
who are thrilled that the summer's over. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathleen. We're going to go to Kevin Tomlinson, Capital Program Report.
Good morning. The capital program highlights are in Section 5 and include 7 milestones for the month of July and August. In July, we had the construction start of the 6th floor and 7th floor balcony fit-out of our Jamaica Control Center building in Jamaica, the beneficial use of the Seaford Station platform, the beneficial use of the Belmore platform waiting room, and the design start of Montauk parking lot. For the month of August, we had the construction start of bridge painting in Nassau County, and there are 2 projects which we are utilizing the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, better known as stimulus funds, and they are the construction start of Atlantic Avenue Viaduct Phase 2 and the start of the Babylon train wash. The standard project updates for Central Islip Police Facility, Atlantic Avenue Viaduct, East Side Access, Atlantic Terminal, and the mainline corridor improvements are found on the in the section also. And if you have any other questions, I'll be more than glad to answer.
It says here the completion of the Phase 2A is on Atlantic Viaduct is second quarter of 2011.
Correct.
Is that the same on Phase 1?
No, Phase 1 will be completed early this coming year, 2010.
So that'll be done in 2010, and then 2A will be done in 2011.
Right. We plan to roll one right into the next.
Okay, and then is that complete, or that's part of the whole project, but there's still more
Correct.
to do?
There will be, there's 18 spans left, which
Okay.
we will plan in our future program to complete.
That's in the 2010 to 2014 capital plan?
We have identified it, yes.
Fine, yes, okay. Thank you.
And Phase 2 is the federal stimulus money.
Right, I see that, yeah, okay.
Okay, with that, I'm going to turn to the information items because we have a number of items in this month's agenda. We're very excited. Our first one is the proposed capital program. There's a staff summary at page 85 in your books. This is, of course, very exciting, not only for the Long Island Railroad, but for the MTA as an agency. We move forward submitting for board review and transmission to the Capital Program Review Board our draft proposed 2010 through 2014 capital program. This is a capital program covering $28.1 billion, a 5-year program. As board members, I know you recognize the fact that 2 years are funded in the financial rescue legislation. We are required by statute to submit a 5-year plan, and we will submit that for the capital program review. That does mean we have to work with our legislative partners to come up with funding for the balance of the program. But it is always exciting to put together a 5-year plan, to evaluate what our needs are, and to be able to progress important programs at the railroad. We couldn't do it without the capital funds. You'll see in our presentation, the handout, that $808 million are dedicated to what we call East Side Access readiness. As MTA Capital Construction actually progresses the East Side Access construction project, there are a number of things the railroad needs to do to make sure we can take full advantage of that tremendous investment and opportunity for new services to Grand Central. So we highlight some of what we call East Side Access readiness, what we must do as a railroad to be ready. There's support work at stations, $15 million. Some very important track investments need to be made. And you see this reference to pocket tracks, both in Massapequa and Great Neck. And that gives us the opportunity to move a track, to put a train in the pocket track while other trains pass. And that will help us maximize the use of our track as we try to direct more trains on our infrastructure, both to Penn Station and to Grand Central. And of course, all important yard investments are identified. A very important bridge replacement at Colonial Road Bridge that will be done in concert with the Great Neck Pocket Track. If you go to the balance of the program, you'll see we're making an investment in rolling stock, an M9 purchase for M3 replacement. This will be in addition to cars that Eastside Access purchases for us for the new service. We also are developing a diesel multiple unit specification so that we can go forward with a vehicle that will allow us to do scoot service in the diesel territory and give us the opportunity to perhaps increase the frequency of service in areas that might otherwise be underserved based on just our regular line haul service into the Central Business District in Manhattan. You can see that we're making our core investments to keep our system in a state of good repair and to do normal replacements in stations, track, line structure. These are all power. These are all very important core program requirements. If you look on page 91, you'll see the total wrap-up of the program and the percentage of funds dedicated to each asset category. If you have any questions, we'd be delighted to answer those.
Questions, comments? Ira?
Just a very brief comment. You heard from Bill Henderson, the executive director of the PCAC, regarding the Long Island Commuters Council's concern regarding third track, which was one of the top priorities of the railroad. And in this program, it's not there at all. So that's our concern that the EIS process or even and design move ahead in the next several years. That's always been our concern. As far as the rest of the as you know, we had as he alluded to, we had a meeting with you, and most of the members were very pleased about the results, and we think we're moving ahead. And there's a lot of great projects in here, the pocket tracks, which you pointed out, and some of the other things of expanding capacity so that we can have full use of Eastside Access. But we do believe third track is important, and I don't want to see it become the Second Avenue subway of the Long Island Railroad. So.
Well, I can, as Ira knows, neither do I, and that's why one should not assume that the draft as currently constituted will be what is approved on next Wednesday. I leave it at that.
And I do want to point out.
I agree with Bill. Bill, I agree with you 100%, and we are working on it.
I also, and I know, Ira, you're, very attuned to what we are trying to accomplish. We do have $200 million in the 05 to 09 program. We have identified system improvements that will support Eastside Access readiness, give us additional utility on our main line, and they will also incorporate every element that would go into that project for the third track. And I know this has been a matter of priority for Mitch Pally. I know it'll be a priority for you. I want to emphasize that it's also a priority for the railroad. We recognize, the importance of the third track, and we are moving on a path that I think will bring the railroad to the ability to do a third track. And we're very conscious of what it does, in particular, for reverse commuting.
Okay, thank you. The other thing I want to mention about the capital program generally, there's things not mentioned in here because I guess they're dull and boring, but I think they're extremely important. One of the things I noticed, the Long Island Railroad's program has a aluminum third rail program, which is supposed to reduce power costs, and I think it's very aggressive for the railroad. And it's not to answer now. I just was wondering about transit and Metro North being part of that as well. But that's not. There's some very good things the railroad's doing and leading the way in the MTA, and it just doesn't get credit. We always hear how Metro North's so much better than the railroad. Not that I want to be competitive with our friends at Metro North, but I think there's a lot of good things the Long Island Railroad is leading the way on. That's one of them.
Thank you very much. We appreciate that recognition, and like you, we don't want to be competitive. We want rail in the area to move forward, both operations working together for the best results. In fact, in our program, you're going to see how we've done that with PTC, Positive Train Control. Let me move now, so we keep moving. There'll be lots more discussion on capital program as we move forward, and we welcome that. There'll be questions and answers that are put up on our website that will demonstrate some of the questions that we've gotten from different groups and what the responses have been. I think it's the beginning of a process, and of course, getting us to the point where we have an approved capital program is essential for the MTA as an institution. So we hope we'll get there by January. January 2010, in case you had any doubts.
No, I know.
Okay, I'm going to move now to our track work program, and we have two very important weekend track work programs coming up. And these are construction projects that do affect service, and they both occur in October. The first one is a Saturday, Sunday, October 17th and 18th, and it involves train service on the Montauk branch. Service will be suspended between Babylon and Spionk. And this is actually something that we are accommodating National Grid, who is undertaking a soil remediation project. And this is something that they've been working on. They've done a lot of extensive community outreach on. They've worked with, DEC to have an entire plan outlined in terms of how they were going to accomplish this major soil remediation project. What the final result is that the Long Island Railroad is actually going to temporarily relocate a section of its track west of Bayshore Station so that National Grid can do this removal of a contaminated soil. And this came about from a power plant, located in the area, I think maybe 50 years ago. It was, something that did have contamination. We're just one small part of a larger site. We'll relocate the tracks so that they can remove soil south of the tracks. Then the tracks will be put back in their normal location, and their soil remediation project will then continue north of the track. So the first relocation occurs, again, the October 17th and 18th. We'll work with National Grid just to make sure the community is well apprised. We'll have a busing operation that will link customers through the area that's out of service. We can anticipate travel time for those particular customers will increase about 50 minutes. National Grid will continue to hold a public meeting. In fact, on September 30th, there'll be lots of information up on their website. As you can see from the diagram, the exact area in proximity to our Bayshore Station. But we don't anticipate any ongoing difficulty. In the spring, the tracks will get relocated, and we'll work with National Grid on that as well. I'm going to move now to a very large project for the Long Island Railroad. This is a second big event. It's the Valley Interlocking Switch and Signal Improvement Project. That will take place on the succeeding weekend. And that is Saturday, Sunday, October 24th and 25th. Oftentimes customers will say to me, oh, do you have to do this, 2 weekends in a row? Even my own employees sometimes say, Elena, 2 weekends in a row. As you probably recognize, we work very hard to protect, the service to the resort area of the Hamptons. And now that season has every year gotten extended and extended. It used to end Labor Day, now it's Columbus Day, leaving, few weekends for us before the harsh weather can come in order to be able to achieve some of these major track programs. So this one is a very important one in October, and it will have a larger scale impact on service. Babylon, Montauk, Long Beach, Far Rockaway, and West Hempstead branches will be affected. Similar to our Queens Interlocking Program. This is an opportunity. We did that last year, as you remember. This is an opportunity for us to really replace the old signal system and controls of the switching and upgrade to computer technology, which is so essential for the Long Island Railroad. We have to focus on modernization efforts. This is a $60 million project. We think in the future it gives us more reliability, it gives us less maintenance-related delays. And we're very excited about being able to put this in place. Ray has been working, with the engineering staff and Al Cosenza and Kevin, Brian, Finn, where are you, Brian? Really working hard to put a comprehensive plan together on how to accomplish this in a very tight time frame. We do expect travel times to increase 30 to 50 minutes on the branches. We will do an all-out public campaign. We've already started with a seat drop this week on every train. We do recommend that customers try to access, the Port Washington branch and the mainline branch. That will give them more of, an easier commute. So if they have the ability to drive to one of those stations for the weekend, that will help. So you'll hear more about that. We will, again, extensive public outreach to let the public know what we're doing. And with that, are there any questions?
Any questions on either of those two issues? It's go ahead.
On the National Grid this is totally coming out of National Grid's.
Absolutely. National Grid is
everything.
paying
The
for
buses, everything.
Yes, everything. All the costs are being handed to National Grid. They understand that. We've worked extensively to highlight what the costs are.
Oh, great. Okay. Just make sure you put in as much as you can.
National Grid is here, and they understand.
We'll send them some bills for other stuff at the same time. Maybe they'll get paid at the same time. You never know.
I will say that because we do have a track outage, and this is where I always credit our employees, my engineering staff, they're so good. They said, look, while this is going on and National Grid has to do that, we're going to deploy another workforce since service is out to work on our Windsor crossing. And we'll do a whole grade crossing upgrade, resurfacing, and that's just, a wonderful opportunity for us. Take advantage when trains are out of service, get as much done as we can. So we'll actually have 2 work sites ongoing. I can't hand the bill, though, on Windsor to National Grid. Okay, with that, I am going to go to, we have the diesel fleet improvement program, and as we had discussed, I did include a summary of our ongoing efforts with the task force. As you can see, this is an issue, and I appreciate the Commuter Council's, interest and willing to parse through the information on this, because it's a very difficult issue for the railroad. We made a capital program investment in the diesel fleet in 1998, 1999. 23 diesel electric coaches, 99, 2000, 23 DM dual mode locomotives came in, and then the 23 cab cars. We had 44 cars with toilets in them, 67 C3 trailer. So together, over that period of time, starting 98 through 99, a tremendous investment made in our operation to bring us a new diesel fleet. The average age, with the exception of the DM locomotives, which are just a little bit younger because they came in second, is 10.5 years. So, I share your frustration. I want you to know that my dedicated team on the diesel fleet shares the frustration for how do you get MDBF, negatively impacted when it's, in the railroad industry, this is new equipment. And we are working hard to, make the repairs more standardized across the fleet, and to improve our relationships with the original equipment manufacturers. As you know, when we purchased the fleet, the manufacturer went belly up, went out of the business. There was a long period of arguing and settling costs. There was a global settlement that gave them a release, and they have not been on the scene. And some of the subcontractors, most importantly, the component suppliers, have not been on the scene until the last 2 years, when we really re-engaged them in a substantial way. We are dedicating staff resources to the issue, and we are very much on a maintenance program that unfortunately wasn't there because of this lapse with the equipment manufacturer. And that is a difficult issue for us. We want new equipment to perform like new equipment. You see the MDBF with the M7s, and it's a startling contrast. So as you can see, we're very focused on how to make sure that we're getting the most we can get out of the original equipment manufacturers. How do we look at parts replacement so that, one of the issues is you have 23 of one locomotive, 22 of another, and they're very small numbers of equipment. So we have to make sure that we're doing a more consistent way of parts replacement and not each one being individually looked at. And we think that will improve reliability. But I cannot make any wholesale promises on dramatic improvement. We're going to work hard to stabilize the performance and gain ground where we can. But while we're trying to recapture, the equipment's going to continue to age. So there is a tension involved in this, which does make me think it's very important for the railroad to start looking at, are there other diesel vehicles that might be suitable for our service? Now, one concern that for example, the Commuter Council raised is, well, what does that other type of equipment do for you? To the extent that we could increase service in diesel territory by using another vehicle, that of course is a real benefit. Second, if we could decrease some of the reliability, and we have to look for where segments might get some improvement by decreasing the reliability on the locomotives we have. So again, we have to look at that from a very broad picture in terms of service planning, service reliability, and no easy answers here. This is going to take a lot of hard work. We're very dedicated to it. Ray has just constant attention with the task force. We're also working with Metro North. They have some diesel equipment as well.
Thank you. I really appreciate the report. I think that there was a good focus on the equipment. Even the coaches are performing as they should, or even better at this point. We're seeing that, and that's right. Satisfying. And it's the diesel, the locomotives that are the source of the problems, and everybody knows, and we all know that. The only thing I'd ask, I think that some of the commuters and people on our council don't know all that's being done, because what they see is the failure. It would be great, I don't know, we could talk about this later, whether someone from our Commuters Council or even maybe a staff from PCAC could actually sit in on one of the biweekly pits. That would be I think that would be very helpful for us to gain, an idea of what's going on, and know that help is on the way, or that the railroad is doing the best it can in this area. So I know we could talk about that later to see what would be appropriate.
Talk about, yeah. Right.
Yeah. No, about someone being on the pit, we can discuss that.
Well, I guess the issue at the moment is not resources. I mean, that's the question.
Right.
It's not resources, it's the equipment. And, even if we provided a substantial amount of more money in the capital plan, that by itself will not solve the diesel problem.
Right.
I mean, it may help, but it won't solve it.
Well, we could try to replace them, but that's a dramatic, it's an extreme cost, and it would be a dramatic change. We'd have to admit that this was a complete collapse. We're not there yet.
We would prefer not to do.
The only thing at the end, you mentioned the new equipment. All I'd say is, look at the history of this equipment, and if you're buying diesel MUs, I mean, those don't have. You go back to different cars. There was maybe one successful one. There's a history of problems with those as well, and I don't think we want to repeat that. So I think reliability should be the main focus in development of new equipment.
And should show up in the specification,
Yes.
exactly.
Yes. Yep, I
Reliability
agree.
factors.
Yep.
Okay, I am going to move, we'd be happy to, ask the task force, to set up a special meeting. We wouldn't invite you to one of our own work sessions. That's just not the way we would go forward. But we'd be happy to invite members of the task force to sit with you, just so you can understand what the task force approach is.
Or have a presentation at their community council
They could
meeting
do a presentation.
by one of the people who are responsible for the
Absolutely.
diesel
Yeah,
review.
we'd be delighted
We could
to
do
do
that.
that. That would be very
Okay, good.
Okay, on page 98, you can see an information item, which is a joint procurement with Metro North. It pre-qualifies 17 consultants who would be available to do rail planning consultant services. This is similar to our GECs. It's just a method of us being able to identify who's out there, who's available, who meets our requirements. I'm going to turn
Why don't we do that one first?
and that is actually an information item
Okay,
here.
so
If
we
you
don't
have
have to
any
do that.
questions,
That's
we
fine.
can ask. We'd be happy to answer those. But that one is actually presented
Metro
by
North is
Metro
doing that?
North.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
We do need to obtain authorization from this committee on another Long Island Railroad Metro North joint activity, and that is authorization to file a loan application with the Federal Railway Administration for funding that will support the installation of positive train control on both systems. As you're aware, and we've discussed it in this committee before, that's an unfunded federal mandate. Nationwide, the federal government appropriated $50 million for every train system nationwide to go forward and install positive train control. It's a very expensive requirement. The $50 million is just a drop in the bucket. You have to apply for a grant to try to access the money. Needless to say, we are applying for every grant we can. But because we're under a very strict federal deadline and timetable for installation, we did want to access something that the FRA has available. They have a fund, and it's at $35 billion nationwide, where you can file for a loan. You have to have a loan application fee, but that you don't actually pay anything. It's like a line of credit. Until you draw down on it, you don't actually owe anything. And you're not obligated to actually draw down on it once you're approved. So source of funds, and we've worked closely with the MTA finance people to determine, as a source of funds, is this cheaper, for example, than something we might be able to do through our own bonding program? And the answer was it may be, yes. So because there's an availability of funding and there's an ability to determine when you want to actually use the funds, and you're not obligated to do it, we determined that this was a very useful course for us to follow and enable us to be able to meet this very tight time frame for positive train control. So with that, I would ask if you have any questions, and we would request your approval.
Questions, comments?
Just how's the interest rate determined?
I'm not trying to.
I
know.
Right. I have to get you
I mean,
there.
you got to be able to keep your meetings. to-
I am going to be able
We have the next
right.
meeting, and then we have the full board
Right.
at 11.
Yeah,
so we can-
we'll get back to you on that.
Okay,
I
sure.
work with
I'm not
finance
being
on it.
rude, but
Right.
We're on a
Right,
schedule today.
No, that's okay.
Yeah.
That's dependent
yeah.
on a lot of people.
Okay.
Is there any
and,
issues, any?
Sorry, I'm not.
No, that's okay. That's okay.
I think we're going to make it
We
here.
need
I'm
a
gonna keep
we need a
going.
motion on
Yeah.
that one, though.
You need a motion?
Right, we need a motion on
I
that
think you
one.
two should have a sidebar meeting.
Okay.
Okay, I move it.
I second it, even though I am concerned about it. I will let it go to the full board for its discussion next week. Anyone questions? All in favor? Aye. To move to the board meeting.
Okay, and with
Go
that,
ahead.
we're going to our procurement section. There are 3 procurements in this month's package totaling $729,000. $1,000. The two items are non-competitive, and the largest one has to do with a database product for our train information system. May I have a vote on the non-competitive procurements?
I move them.
Second, any questions on? All in favor? Aye.
We have one item in the competitive section, and that is in the amount of $114,000, and it is for cleaning service on some of our various walk-off mats at Long Island Railroad locations. Could we have a vote on the competitive procurement?
I move that.
Second, any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
There are no ratifications in this package, and we've included in there our second quarterly inventory report. And with that, that concludes our presentation.
Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, my comment is I don't want to come off to anyone in this room that I'm being rude. It's just like we just have to stick to a schedule. And I think an hour meeting
Right.
is
And we'll follow up.
for one of our agencies.
Well, we do have the issue this month of
Right.
having 2 months,
Yeah.
so we'll
That's
we'll
true.
we'll we'll
Forgot about that.
leave it at that for the
Like I
moment.
hadn't been here in a while.
Yeah, that's why.
Okay.
Any other comments or questions?
Yeah, thank you very
Move
much.
to adjourn. Thank you.
Potty break.